Yeah. Let me get one more. Hello, everybody. Welcome. This is episode 16 of Dead Money. I played hooky again, if you can believe that. Although this time it was kind of necessary. I've been sick all week again. Maybe you can still hear it. I really thought you're not supposed to get old in one fucking day, but Jesus, I'm sure getting there a hell of a lot faster than I imagined. But it's probably not the worst time of year for this to happen, since April poker oftentimes is a little slow. But even so, Vegas has always been hit or miss, everywhere, every day, since I've been here. You never know at what day or time games are going to be great or terrible. You never know when some whale is just going to waltz in and dust, or dust you. Sometimes I think the best times to play might be during the peak of the off-peak hours. Because what do you think every reg says to themselves on Friday and Saturday night? Oh, it's the weekend, there's going to be fish everywhere. And then you show up and it's a reg fest. But if it's Monday or Tuesday night when everyone thinks to hell with it, no one's going to be there, well, that could be a gold mine. You don't need the room to have 10 games going to find yourself in a good spot. One good game will do just fine. Now, obviously, yes, the more games there are, the easier it should be, in theory, to find a good game, but the specific whale, that which is the rich old white businessman, isn't likely to be there at 2 in the morning. They'll probably show up when it's quiet, like 9 or 10 a.m., just like they're going to work. His wife spends the day shopping or in the spa while he gambles. Then he leaves in the late afternoon, they have dinner, and they go to a show. I don't know. The point is, you can't pinpoint any of this to an actual system. So just play the hours you feel like playing on whatever days. You start making a pure schedule out of this, and you're sort of just forcing a round dick into a square vagina. It's not even worth it at that point. Alright, still worth it. Anyway, so I got my heart broken again recently, although in a much different way this time. So, let's talk about how that happened. So about 4.5 years ago, meaning only a few months after the COVID shutdown ended, the Wynn Poker Room was in its temporary location. Instead of being in the big wedding-looking ballroom at the Encore, it was directly across from Allegro and the Sportsbook on the Wynn side. It was occupying a space where there used to be table games. There were 14 poker tables which had the plexiglass. It was the first time all games were 8-handed. And the reason they put the temporary room here was because it was a more open space. Now before I go on, I just want to mention, if I do ever get married, and that is less than a guarantee to take place, I will insist it be at the Encore Poker Room. I will have them close it for just us, because every day I'm there, all I do is picture myself walking down the aisle over the 2 beautiful black pocket aces on the floor of the room's entrance. That should be the number one dream way to get married for any poker player and have their wedding. Now, since I'm sure you're wondering, the reason why I've never been married is because, well, neither I nor any woman ever wanted to get married to one another at the exact same time. The missiles never collided. But, okay. So there was a hand at the COVID Wynn Poker Room that must have been in November or December of 2020. In late September of that year, after being mostly not that interested in playing the previous 3.5 years, I think I played roughly 620 hours in that stretch, which in hindsight sounds quite glorious, I returned to playing. Fully in it, born again hard. I had been in Miami the previous week, for a week, visiting an amigo. Poker was completely off my mind. I didn't do any Coke, I mean Pepsi, that trip. But I still had an epiphany. I was just walking along the street somewhere one afternoon when suddenly it hit me like a bolt of lightning that as miserable and brutal as life is with poker, it's even worse without it. And that did it for me right then and there. I reminded myself, poker is always going to be what it's always been, but that's okay because it's good for me. And when I get back to Vegas, I'm going to jump right back in, and I did. And now I'm talking to you because I've allowed the player pool to destroy all of what little good that was left inside of me. I spent the first 5 weeks mostly on like a rehab assignment. Kind of like when a baseball player comes back from a serious injury. He doesn't just go straight to the major leagues. He spends a few days or a week in the minor leagues. Well, I took longer than that since oftentimes I'm a little slow. Although never when there's a woman above, beneath, or in front of my figure. Never had any issues being a speed demon there. I actually played some Bellagio 510 that month, but a lot of those first 5 weeks, I was at the Bellagio 2.5 with the $500 cap. Then one day I finally woke up and said, okay, had enough of this. I'd like to win 2.5 again so we can play deep. And this game, before my very extended break began, had been my main room for over a year. So I was grinding that game again for a few weeks and doing fine. Just happy to be back, even in these bizarre circumstances of wearing masks and looking through plexiglass. Then one day, I come across Adam Walton before I knew that's who it was. And you may remember or know that Adam came in third place at the World Series of Poker Main Event in 2023. So he doesn't have any money. But this was almost 3 years before that. Now, I think I recognized his face from playing with him a tiny bit at some other time, but nothing happened. So I'm watching him play, and after a little while of seeing his circus act, all I could think is, what is this person doing? You see, Adam is very much the Street Fighter type for live poker. He is extremely unorthodox. And he not only breaks all the rules of what any winning player would consider sensible, he creates new rules, and then he breaks those too. He plays, or at least played, a style and a range of pre-flop hands that will seem idiotic to just about anybody, but it's not important that it makes sense to me, you, or anybody else. It only needs to make sense to him. So as I'm watching him, I'm thinking, wow, this guy is like, he's not a fish, but he kind of is. But the more I watched, the more I also thought, all right, he may be quite unconventional. But I was also getting a strong sense that this style he uses, and thus image he builds, is going to disorient and disrupt and tilt a huge percentage of the field. Then throw in that a huge percentage of the 2-5 field is completely terrible to begin with. Then I could just see this guy probably just gets a lot of players to punt to him in all kinds of ways. And as I said in the last episode, that is a very difficult skill to have that hardly anyone does. I know I don't. In the last few years, I started thinking I might be a little better at that than I thought, since so many players think I'm such an asshole that they may be spazzing out more often than I'd been giving them credit for. But either way, I've never been this type of player. In this context, I've always been perceived as a normal enough player, if not a normal player. Anyway, so one day he's 2 or 3 seats on my left. And this is probably my 3rd or 4th session with him, and I've played good against him so far. And run pretty good. But on this day, we started battling some more, and the tension was starting to rise. No words were spoken, but you could get the sense that both of us was very unafraid of the other. And then a seat opened a couple spots away on my right, and I took it, just to get him a little closer to my right. And I wasn't gunning for him, but I just wanted to reduce how often I'm going to have to be out of position against him. Just respecting thy enemy. But as the session was going on, I was thinking about how tempted I'll be to fire a huge bluff at him, since I know he's going to get to so many spots with so many strange hands. But then I thought, I don't know if I should do that because I also started getting the sense that he might be thinking that that's what I'm thinking, and if he is, I'll probably get called too often. So I just told myself, all right, if and when you fire the really big one at him, just make sure you have it. So first, this hand happens. One or two players limp. He overlimps. I have ace king of diamonds on the button, and I raised to 30 or 35. I don't remember if anyone called, but then he limp raised. And I just thought, LOL, this is never a hand, so I 4-bet to 500. But then he jams, and we're both deep. He covered me, and I still had 1,800 left. So I'm getting about 1.55 to 1, which means if I call, my hand will need to win about 40% of the time. And right away, I had a bad feeling. Because even though the over limp raise and then 5-bet over jam is supposed to look like some massive spaz, thus giving me an easy call, all I could think about was, he knows that, and that just made me think he has something. Of course, by having something, if it's queens or jacks for instance, then even though he's ahead, I'm getting the right price. And there's also at least some possibility he also has ace king. And of course, what I'm most afraid of is the chance that he has either kings or the granddaddies. But whatever he had, I just didn't want to take the variance. I mean, it was like, I've been doing good in the game and since coming back, but like, I didn't feel like I was just like dipping back in, but I don't know. I just wasn't trying to play a pot this way, so fuck me, I folded. Now, he didn't show, but when he took the pot, there seemed to be this like subtle hint of triumph in his behavior, like he was very pleased with this result. And if he had any value hand besides aces or kings, such as the aforementioned queens or jacks or, I don't know, any pair, I guess, well, then he very much won the war in this spot since, you know, as I said, I mean, ace-king suited for sure has the right price to call against those hands. And, of course, holy goddamn, if he bluffed me with anything, especially a weaker ace, then he really bent me over. But in the moment, I was just really regretting 4-betting him because I could have just taken the flop and played post in position with this very strong hand and without risking giving him the chance to put me in the spot that he just did. But at the time, I mistakenly hadn't considered that he may do that. And yes, we were battling throughout the day, but nothing like this had happened. So, I allowed myself to get caught off guard, and that's the real mistake of this hand, whether my fold ended up being good for me or not. But alright, now things are getting very real. So now I'm under the gun. He puts out the button straddle of $10. I had pocket threes and raised to 40. He called on the button and we went heads up. And the flop was jack 3-5 rainbow. Alright, that'll do. I bet the flop and he raised, and I don't remember the specific sizes from each of us. All I know is like they were just something typical. And then I called his raise. And then the turn was another 3. So I check. He bets something normal. Something on the bigger side, but not massive. I call. The river was a 7. There's no possible flush, and I'm pretty sure this board never had a flush draw. I check again. And I think he bet 425, but whatever he bet, all I know is once I matched the 425, that would bring the pot up to 1400. Now in these situations, more often than not, I'm afraid to raise too much because it is brutal when you don't get the big call at the end because you went anywhere from a little too big to way too big. And when I'm at my sharpest, I always pick the perfect size where it's big but not too big. But I also just said that I was getting the sense that he was going to want to call me when I go huge. And now I've got the nuts with quad threes, so going huge seems like a pretty good idea. So instead of making it like 700 or 800 more like I often would in a situation like this, I jammed. And the jam was about 1600 more into 1400. So it wasn't like it was this gigantic overstuff, but it was big. Certainly bigger than I'm used to getting to go when I nutted like I am here. And after going all in, the first words out of Adam's mouth were, and sounding a little exasperated, he says, like, I know, you're just trying to give it to me. And I thought, okay. I was right. He did think I wanted to bluff it off to him. So, come and get it, baby. Here it is. So he's thinking and he's thinking. He verifies the amount and the dealer tells him it's $2,000. He says, $2,000 more? She says, no, $2,000 total, meaning just $1,600 more. And that seemed to give him a brief second of relief once he realized it wasn't $2,000 more, only $1,600. So he's continuing to think it all through, and then he says, it'd be really sick if you have pocket sevens, which would have given me a full house on the river if I did. And when he said that, I started thinking, does he have 6-4? Just semi-bluffing with the open-ended straight draw as I call down light with sevens, and then we get this crazy river cash card where he hits the straight as I make the boat. That's why I started thinking he's got, based on that comment. That or maybe pocket fives. Whatever the case, it was quite apparent that he knows he's bluff catching. And the longer this went on, it was feeling more and more like he was going to call. And then he did. Whee! And when I showed him the quads, he just smiled and laughed a little as he said, he's like, that's good. Nice hands. And I think within the next 30 minutes to an hour he left. But getting the call in that spot, with the way the dynamics had been developing for several hours, that was one of the most satisfying moments I'd ever had. Because everything was occurring exactly as I thought it was. And over the next couple of days, I'm texting my boys and telling people about this hand, and I'm just sitting on top of the world for outwitting this guy. And this was also before I found out that not only was Adam a 2-5 crusher at the Wynn the last few years when I wasn't out there that much, but that he was like by far the biggest winner. And that, of course, just made all this that much more satisfying. But now we fast forward a few years. Adam comes in third at the main event 2 years ago. But he and I still don't really know each other. We played a few more times since, and I continue to run good against him. And we had some very brief exchanges on the table, but never like a conversation. But we both knew that we each had a lot of mutual friends. So then, a few weeks ago, I was out with a bunch of people downtown, and he was there. So now, well over 4 years later, I am finally going to get a chance to actually talk to him in a social setting. And not long after we started doing that, I brought up that hand. I said, do you remember that hand where we played at the temporary room? And he immediately interjects and says, where I had jacks? I said, jacks? What do you mean? He's like, when you had quad threes. I said, yeah. I said, you had jacks? He says, yeah. I said, you mean you had a pair of jacks or pocket jacks? He says, pocket jacks. I'm like, you had pocket jacks, so you had top full house? He's like, yeah. So then I say, I'm like, well, then why did you take so long to call? He said, because I thought you had quads. Now, oh my fucking God. That has ruined my whole month. How many times I jerked myself off to sleep for thinking how hard I'd sunned him in that hand. But now, years later, I'm finding out that this whole time, he had top full house. He loses to nothing except the lone combo of quad threes that I had. Oh my God. It's like something out of the Twilight Zone. So not only did I not sun him even slightly, I merely cold-decked the shit out of him. I ran obscenely good. I mean, there's nothing to say. We both flopped sets and I turned a 1-outer. GG. But God, what a fucking ego blow, right? And now I just think that even though one hand technically has nothing to do with the other hand, but because he barely called with top full house, now I think he either bluffed me off the ace-king suited, or he just got me to fold when I was getting the right price against something better. Either way, now I just think he got the better in that exchange too. Might be the worst. But I still don't get why he didn't just snap call with pocket jacks. The board ran Jack 3, 5, 3, 7. If I had pocket fives, I'd have played it the exact same way, 100%. So when he faces this check raise all in on the river for what was only about 1.15x pot, he cannot even consider folding because I have 3 combos of fives and 1 combo of quads. So what in the world was he thinking about? I'm actually kind of pissed off at him now for cock-teasing me, letting me think all these years that I had stunned him. And especially when he made that comment on the river about how sick it would be if I had pocket sevens, which he would have beat. If I had sevens, I don't think I would have bet the flop, so I'd have played it differently, but if he thinks there's even a small chance of me having that, then that's just another reason he has to call. And I told him all this, but he still said, I don't know, I still think it's not that easy of a spot. So, alright, that's what he thought. He obviously didn't think it was a foregone conclusion that I would jam pocket fives. Okay, that's what he thought. And plus, Adam leans on live reads in a ton of spots. And he also, like myself, will make some massive folds to players in spots where he knows they cannot show up with anything except a better hand than the one he has. And if he had folded that hand because of a live read, well, I don't know. I mean, on one level, it would just feel like a lucky fold since I do get here with pocket fives. But on another level, that would also be some, like, next dimension extraterrestrial shit to fold the top full house there. But you can't. You just can't. Not when it's only 1.15x pot, and not with what is just very relatively little amount of history between the two of us. Now, if my jam were like 3x pot, or I don't know how big of an overjam it would need to be, but if it was reaching those figures, then I guess you can start to think about it. But not for the situation we were in. Because you can have the live read that I'm nutted, but you still beat a real chunk of the nutted value range. And if he thinks that I'm not going to want to try to get my stacking with fives full on that river, then, I mean, whether he's correct to be thinking that or not, he's still mistaken because I am going to get the stack in there. But I'm not going to second guess him too much because anytime a pro player tells me about a controversial decision, well, not controversial, just like really tough outside the lines decision he either made or thought of making because of a live read or a sizing tell, something he felt confident in. To that I always think, okay, you're a professional. And if that's what you thought you were up against, then that's how you should respond to it. It amazes me how often when two pro players are discussing hands, that at least one of them is just never giving the other any credit or respect or any benefit of the doubt whatsoever that maybe what he was thinking had merit, even if it's not what he personally would have done. Poker players are so opinionated about their perspectives on hands because somewhere within, deep down, we all think we're the best. Myself included. Except I really am the best. I know I said before that I was the worst, but I'm allowed to change my mind, and I did. Still, though, I was so upset about this, and I spent the rest of the night searching for any reason why Adam would want to lie to me about this, and I could not come up with one. He just hit it for $4 fucking million at the main event final table not even 2 years ago. Not to mention all the other significant tournament cashes he's probably had. What would ever possess him to bullshit me now? Nothing. To think he was lying would just be wishful thinking. And plenty of poker players do that all the time as well. The only thing they ever believe is whatever makes them look and feel the smartest. So I have an all-time satisfying moment ripped away from me in an instant and reduced to nothing but a lovely cooler story that I was on the right side of in a $4,600 pot at the Win 2-5 when the fucking button straddle was on. Oh joy. You know what I think this is like? This is like spending all night with a really hot fucking woman who you're super into and is super into you, and then finding out moments before you're about to fuck her that she has a dick. Now, I have no idea what an experience like that would feel like, but it sure sounds terrible. And when he told me he had top full that hand, and not the bluff catching straight like I told him I thought he had because of that pocket sevens river comment, that's all I could think of as a comparison. Finding out the hot woman who's all about you has had a dick this whole time. All the glorious things you were feeling so pumped about, all taken away in an instant. Unbelievable. Oh well. It didn't make the pot any smaller, but when you're playing for a lot more than just the money, hearing something like this totally de-victorizes the most important part of the whole victory. You know, this all reminds me of one other quick story similar to this. In 2016, which was my first full year of focusing only on 2-5, one day I was playing at the Aria. I played almost every session at the Win that year, but just not this day. I get into a 3-bet pot with a guy, this really old guy with glasses, but a cool customer. And he always wears a black leather Aussie. And he's pretty nitty, but he's getting his job done. Anyway, I have the button with pocket tens. I flop top set, he bets, I call. The turn was some low card, so I think the board was 10-2-3-5. No suits. Now he jams. I call. The river is an ace. And he shows pocket aces, ripping my heart out with this 6-outer. But as I roll my eyes and muck my cards in disgust, first I quickly flash to the table what I had so I can save face. Now, all of a sudden, this ordinarily nice guy, who I'd never had any gripe with about anything, taunts me when he says, "Hunting's no fun when the rabbit's got the gun." So apparently he didn't see that I'd shown that I had top set. So then somebody told him he had top set. He had a set of tens. And then he was just like, oh. And it's just like, yeah, shut the fuck up, idiot. You think I just beat you into the pot with something you're still ahead of after you 3-bet pre and then go bet jam turn? Please. So his moment of whacking himself off from outwitting a nemesis was also totally ruined. Except for him, it was immediate. Mine took over 4 years. But even if I didn't have him beat, let's say I had pocket queens and allowing his little fantasy to come true, what the fuck is he taunting me for? I never got into it with this guy. Never. Nothing. But that's 2-5 for you. They can't just take the fucking money and keep their mouth shut. No, that was not enough for him. Even at his age, he still had to have a little parade for himself too. So my only guess is that even though we'd never played a really big pot or had any tips, he probably just found me frustrating to deal with from being put in bad spots in previous sessions because I'd played with him at the Win a number of times too. That, or maybe he just thought I was a prick, as many others have, and just wanted to shit on me now that he finally had a chance. Or maybe it was both. Either way, he was quite satisfied to have finally landed a big shot on me, but it was nothing like he pretended, since his hand, like him, was nearly 90% in the grave before suddenly pulling this huge river. Hunting's no fun when the rabbit's got the gun. Yeah. You got me. Alright. That'll be enough for today. I really want to get out there this week because I'm starting to get bored, so once this illness passes, I think that's what I'll do. Unless, of course, I come up with something else to goof off with instead, and you can certainly never discount the possibility of that happening, but no matter what happens, we shall talk again soon. See you next time.